Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to learn how to build a filterable image gallery using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. In this video, you are going to learn how to add images to an image gallery. You are going to learn how to make this cool over effect using CSS. Not just that, we are going to make this image gallery interactive using JavaScript. Now when we click on babies, images of babies gets displayed to the UI. When we click on children, images of children get displayed. When we click on women, images of women get displayed. And when we click on men, images of men get displayed. And also when we click on all the images in the image gallery get shown to the user. And we're not going to stop there. We're going to make this image gallery fully responsive. Whatever device you view this image gallery on is going to be fully responsive, even for mobile devices. And this is an excellent and fun front-end project to work on. And it's also something you can integrate to your website when you're working on your next project. Now, if you're excited about this video, smash on the like button and leave a comment below. It's going to help YouTube algorithm push this content to more people who are going to find it helpful. And just basically consider it as a little way of supporting the channel. And lastly, if you've not subscribed, ensure you do that and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss out on helpful web development tutorials like this. Let's dive into it. I've already created my index.html file, and inside my index.html file, I'm linking this index.html file to this style.css file right here. That's this style.css file right here. And inside this style.css file, I'm importing Google Fonts up here, and down here I'm applying that fonts to my project, Poppins. And also, I have an images folder right here that contains all the images we are going to use for this project. So let's start building the image gallery. So I'm going to head to my index.html file. I'm going to close this up. Now inside this body tag, I'm going to create a div. And this div is going to have a class name of header. And inside this div, I'm going to have an h1 tag that is going to say filterable image gallery. I'm going to click on go live to run this on my browser. So I'll click on go live. And we can see this project opens up in our web browser. We have that h1 tag right here, filterable image gallery. And let's start adding styles to this web page. So I'm going to head to my style.css file. First off, I'm going to apply a background color to my body. I'm going to give it a background color of #111827. I'll save that. Now when I check back the web page, I'm going to notice that that background color has been applied. So let's style up this h1 tag right here. To do that, I'm going to head to my index.html file. I'm going to copy that class name. I head that class name right here. And down here, I'm going to paste that class name right here. For the header, I'm going to give it a background color of #1F2937 and a color of #14BA86. I'll save that. When we check out the output, you can see that our text is actually styled and it has a background color right here. So let's add more styles to it. First of all, I'm going to align the text center. I'll give it a text align of center to center it. A font size of 1 rem and a padding top and bottom of 15 pixels, left and right of 0. I'll save that. When I check it out, you can see that we now have that filterable image gallery text right here fully styled. So next, we're going to add and style up the buttons we're going to use to actually filter through the image gallery. So I head back to my index.html file. Now underneath this div right here, I'm going to create a div. And this div is going to have a class name of filter buttons. And inside this div, I'm going to have a button that's going to say all. And also it's going to have a class of button. Not just that, it's going to have a data filter. This particular one is going to equals to all. Then I'm going to copy this and just drag this down. 1, 2, 3, 4. The next one is going to be babies. And the data filter is going to say babies. The next one is going to be for children. The data filter is going to say children. Then next we are going to have women, men here. Then the data filter for this one is going to be men, while for the data filter for this one is going to be women. Okay, and these are the buttons we are going to actually use to actually filter the image gallery. And when we turn back to the web page, you can see those buttons right here: all babies, children, women, and men. So let's start applying styles to these buttons. So I'm going to go back to my index.html file. I'm going to copy these filter buttons. It's not spelled correctly. It's not filter. It's supposed to be filter buttons. So I'm going to copy this class name right here. I head to my style.css file. And down here, I'm going to paste that class right here. First off, I'm going to give this button container a display of flex, a justified content of center. I want the buttons to be at the center horizontally. Then I want to apply a margin top and bottom of 30 pixels, left and right of 0. I want to come back to the web page. You can see right now that the buttons are at the center of the web page. So now we are going to start styling the individual buttons. So we are going to do that using the class name of the buttons. Remember, we gave these buttons a class name of buttons. So we're going to target these buttons with this class name we gave to the button, this class of button. So I'm going to go to my style.css. So I'm going to copy this right here. I'll paste that underneath here. I want to target the button class inside this button container. Now for each button, I want to have a margin top and bottom of 0, left and right of 5 pixels. And that's going to add space between the buttons. You can see now I have space, 5 pixels of margin between each of the button. Next, we're going to say border of none, outline of none. I'm going to give the button a background color of #1F2937. Yeah, this background color right here. Next, I'll give it a color of #14BA86. That is this stick color right here. This stick color we apply to the text of the header. Next, I'll give it a cursor of pointer, a padding. Top and bottom is going to have a padding of 5 pixels. Then left and right is going to have a padding of 20 pixels. And when we turn back to the web page, you can see that the buttons are actually looking better. But we can add more styles to this. First of all, I'm going to give it a font size. I'll give it a font size of 1 rem, a font width of 500, then the border radius of 8 pixels. Okay. Now you can see the buttons are way better this way. So what we want to work on next is that we want to create the active button class. Okay, now when we are looking at all the images, this button is going to have that active button class. When we are looking at images of babies, we're going to have this one as the active button. Then when we are looking at images of children, this one is going to be the active button. So let's do that. To do that, we have to create an active button class. Okay, so I want to go back to my CSS. Down here, I'm going to say dot filter buttons dot active button. Button. The button is going to have a background color of this hash color right here and a color of white. I'll save that. Now I'm going to apply this active class to one of those buttons. So I'm going to copy that. I'll go to my index.html file. I'll just paste that right here. Paste the active button class right here. And when I go back to the web page, you can notice that this first one is acting as our active button. So next we can start working on actually adding the images. Okay. So I'm going to head back to my index.html file. Now underneath this filter buttons container, I'm going to create another div. And this div is going to have a class name of gallery. And inside this div, we're going to have another div that's going to have a class name of item. Now each of these div items is going to have a data category. Okay, so I'm going to say data category. Now in this case, the category of the image I'm going to add to this container is going to belong to the children category. So I'm going to say children. And inside this place, I'm going to add an image. I'm going to go inside our image folder. I'm going to access children1.jpg. Then the alt text is going to say child. Okay. So I'm going to copy this. Then I'll drag this down. Then the next one is going to be for men. The data category is going to be for men. Then the alt text is going to be man. Then it's going to be men1.jpg. And I'll copy that and drag that down again. The next one is going to belong to the women category, so I'm going to say women. Then down here I'm going to say woman. Then here is going to be women. Let me just use women4.jpg. I'll do the same thing again. I'll copy this and I'll drag this down. Then we're going to have women5.jpg. And when I save and go back to the web page, you can see that we have these humongous images in our web page. Very, 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 very large images. Okay, so let's start actually applying styles to this image. So I'm going to copy this class name, copy this gallery class name. I'm going to head to my style of CSS file. I'll scroll the way down. Down here, I'm going to paste that class name .gallery. First off, I want to give this gallery a display. I'll give it grid. Okay, now I'll give it a grid template columns of repeats, auto, fit, min, max, 300 pixels, 1 fr. Okay, I want each of the images to have a gap of 16 pixels. I want to apply a padding top and bottom of 20 pixels, left and right of 5%. Okay, I'm going to return back to the web page and check out our images, and you can see our images are now actually looking better. They're not in the grid display, but they are still not looking that great because we have not applied a width and height property to these images. So let's start doing that. So to do that, I want to target this item inside this gallery, these items, right? This item container right here. So I want to target that. I'm going to go to my style of CSS file. Down here, I'm going to say item.item. Then I want to target the image inside the item. I'll give this image a width of 100%. I want the image to occupy 100% of its parent container. Then I want it to have a height of auto. I want the images to have a cursor of pointer and a border radius of about 8 pixels. Okay, I want to check out the image. You can see that the image are looking way better and they are looking really good. So I'm just going to add more images to this. So I'm going to go to my index.html file. Now to save it, I'm just going to paste in the images, then I'll just return back. Down here, I'll just paste more images right here. Alright, so I've added more images to this image gallery. So I'll just save that. I'll check out the output. And you can see that our image gallery is now looking really good. We have more images in our image gallery. So what we are going to work on next is that when we hover on one of these images, we want it to actually zoom out a little bit and actually like rotate a bit. So let's do that. So I'm going to head to my style of CSS file. Now I'm going to copy this. I'll paste this down here. I'm going to say on hover of this image. When someone hovers on this image, I want to add a transform. First of all, I want to apply a scale of 1.05, then a rotate of 3 degrees. Okay. And when I hover on one of these images, you can see it actually rotates and actually zooms out a bit by 1.05 scale. Okay, so to make it look really cool and smooth, we're going to add a transition to the image. So up here, I'm going to say transition 0.5 seconds is in out, and you can see that little smooth transition on this image when we hover on the images. So next we have to start working on actually featuring this image gallery. When we click on babies, we only want images of babies to be shown to the UI. When we click on children, we want only images of children to be shown to the UI. We only want all the images to be shown to the UI or to the user when we click on all images. Okay, so let's work on that. So now to actually achieve this, we're going to have to use JavaScript. So down here, my index.html file, I'm going to create a script tag. Now down here, just before my body tag, I'm going to create a script tag. So in between this opening and closing script tag, this is where we're going to add all the JavaScript to make this image gallery interactive. First of all, we have to target these buttons. These buttons up here, all these buttons, we have to target all these buttons. So to do that in JavaScript, we're going to scroll down. We're going to say const buttons. We're going to set the buttons into a variable. I'm going to access the document using document.querySelector. I want to get all the buttons. Okay. Now, what attribute do I want to use to actually get these buttons? I want to use this data filter attribute. That way, any button that has this data filter attribute in it is going to be targeted by that document.querySelector, or we just added in our JavaScript. Okay. So next we have to target the images. Remember, we gave this images container a class name of item. So we're going to target it using the class name. So down here, I'm going to say const items is equals to documents dot query selector. I want all the images and I'm going to target them using dot item. That way, any div that has this class of item is going to be targeted by this code right here. All right. And the next thing you want to do, you want to actually loop through the buttons, because this data filter is going to return about 5 buttons. So it's going to return 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buttons. So we cannot add event listeners to all the buttons at the same time. So we want to loop through these buttons. So down here, I'm going to say buttons dot for each button. So for each of the buttons, I want to add an event listener. So I'm going to say button dot add event listener. Now, what event listener do I want to listen for? A click. When this button is clicked, I want to actually run a function. And the function I'm going to run is going to be this arrow function right here. Then between these two opening and closing squiggly brackets, I'm going to write the function I actually want to run when someone clicks on this button. Now, what I want to do inside this function is that I want to check if the button a user clicked on has a filter. For example, remember we gave each of the data filter has a value. Okay, up here you can see that each of the data filter has a value. Either it could be all, it could be babies, it could be children, it could be women or men. Okay, so now here we want to know the filter value of the button the user clicked on and compare that filter value to the items. Okay, so if that filter value equals to a data category, then that data category is going to be shown to the user. For example, if I clicked on a button that says men, that's a data filter of men, I'm going to compare it with all my images. I only show the images that has a data category of men. So I'm going to say const filter is equals to button. That's the button the user clicked on. We want to get the attribute, of that button. And what's the name of this attribute? It's going to be data filter. Okay, which means if I click on babies, this value right here, this filter values right here, this filter variable right here is going to be babies. Now I want to use this filter variable to actually compare and filter out the images. Now to filter out the image, I have to loop through the images. So down here, I'm going to say items dot for each. I'm going to get an item, call it an item. So I'm going to get the item attribute. I'm going to call it a category. Const category is equals to item dot get attribute data category. Okay. Now what this line of code is going to do is that it's going to loop through all the images we are getting. It's going to loop through all our images. Now for every time it loops through this image, it's going to set the data attribute of the image to this category right here. Okay. And now I want to check if the filter, if the button the user clicked on, the value of the button the user clicked on is equivalent to the category I'm actually looping through. Now if that's true, I want to get that particular item, then target the style, then the display value, and I want to set this to block. Okay. S, I want to target the item dot the style dot the display, then I want to set this to none. All right, let's test it out. So when I go back to the web page and I click on women, you're going to notice that the images of women get displayed. When I click on men, the images of men get displayed, and we have 2 images of men right here. Let me go back and see what's happening. I think we have 2 men, 1 right here, so I'm going to get rid of 1. I have 2 men, 1, 2 images are repeating themselves. Okay. When I click on men, it's going to show images of men. When I click on women, it's going to show images of women. When I click on children, it's going to show images of children. Same thing, we have 2 images of children repeating itself right here. Why is that? Children 3, children 1. Okay, I have 2 children 1, so I just change this one to children 2. When I click on babies, babies get displayed. When I click on children, children get display. When I click on women, women get display. When I click on men, men get display. Now let me explain again what this JavaScript code is doing. I want to scroll down. Now, first of all, this variable is going to target all the buttons that have this data filter attribute. Okay. And there's this item right here. It's going to target every div that has this item class, and it's going to target all of them, and they are going to be like a collection. Same thing with this one, is going to return 5, while this one is going to return the number of images we have in our HTML document. Now after that, I'm going to loop through because I cannot add event listener to all the buttons at once, so I have to loop through the buttons. So I'm going to say buttons dot for each of the button. For each of the button, I want to add an event listener. So when someone clicks on that button, what I want to do, I want to get the attribute of that button. So if I click on babies, this filter variable right here is going to be babies. If I click on children, this filter right here is going to be children. So I want to actually compare the one I click on. If I click on children, I want to set the children divs to block and set the other elements to none. So if I click on babies, I want to set the babies divs to block, then the other divs, the men, the women, and the other ones to none. Now to do that, I have to actually compare if this filter value I clicked on is equivalent or equal to the data filter of the div. So next, we have to now loop through the actual div of the images. Okay, and remember that we targeted the divs using these items right here. So all the items are inside this variable right here. So we have to loop through all the images container and actually get which one is equivalent to this filter. So I'm going to say items dot for each of the item. Then I'm going to set each of them. I'm actually looping through to this category right here. Then I'm going to compare them. Okay, so I'm going to say if the filter, if the button I clicked on is equals to the category, if it's equals to babies, all the items that have a data category of babies are going to be set to block, while the other ones that don't have a category set to babies are going to be set to none. That way, when I click on babies, only babies images are going to be shown on the gallery. Okay, and we are not done yet. When we click on all, we are going to notice that we cannot see any image right here. Why is that? Now that's because when we did this if check, we were checking if the button the user clicked on is actually equals to this category. And remember that we don't have any image category that is equals to all. Okay, so up here we have a data filter of all babies, children, women, and men. We have images for men that has a data category for men. We have for men, for children, for women, and for babies, but we don't have a data category for all, which means this all will never have any image. Okay, and what we could do is that we can also check, say all filter equivalent to all, and I'll save that. And I go back to the web page, and when I click on babies, I'm going to notice that the images of babies get shown to the UI. And when I click on all the images get shown to the UI. When I click on children, the images of children get shown to the UI. Okay, and what we want to work on next is that if we click on women, we want the women button to have an active class. Okay, so let's work on that. So down here, I'm going to say button dot class list dot add active button class. As that active button class, we're creating our style of CSS file. This active button class right here. Okay, and I'll save that. When I go back to the web page and I click on children, you're going to notice that this children now has an active class. I click on women, these women now have active class. But we can see the problem right here. Every button we click on is going to have that active class. So what we could do is that before we add the class, we first of all have to generally remove the class from all the buttons. So just before we add this button class right here, we first of all have to remove the button class from all the buttons. So down here, I'm going to say buttons. I want to get all the buttons dot for each. I want to call it a button. Then I'm going to say button dot class list dot remove active button class. Okay. Now, right here, before we add the active button class to the button we clicked on, first of all, generally I want to remove it from all the buttons. That's what we are doing with this line of code right here. So when I go back to the web page and click on babies, you're going to know that babies now has the active class. I click on children, children now has the active class. I will now have the images of children right here. I click on men, men now has the active class. Okay, when I click on all the images get displayed to the UI. Now that's it for this quick video. If you enjoyed the video, smash on the like button and leave a comment below. It's going to help the YouTube algorithm to push this content to more people who are going to find it helpful, and just basically consider it as a way of you supporting the channel. And lastly, if you've not subscribed, ensure you do that and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss out on helpful web development tutorials like this. I'll see you in the next video.